Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're staying well. Collaboration is one of the many great qualities of the stamping industry. Ink on 3 and Heffy Doodle have traded products, and I'm so lucky to be using both brands on two card projects. I'll be making one nebula type background with Ink on 3 products, and using it on two different scene cards with Heffy Doodle stamp and die sets. So here are the most important materials I'll be using today. On the left is Heffy Doodle spaced out stamp and die set, and on the right are my well-loved Ink on 3 Atelier Fusion inks and Blackout detail ink. First up are the Ink on 3 Atelier inks. Now I have all of them because they're a perfect addition to my crafty stash. These water reactive inks create seamless interstellar clouds. I prefer to make nebulas with an ink blending sponge and slowly building up the color. You'll notice I will use black sparingly. I find that making light clouds of color gives a much more realistic dusty scene. I also like to create movement in the nebula clouds by adding some shape and direction to the ink blended clouds. Think of it like the auroras on the Earth poles. I start with the jewel tones like Maryland Red, Peacock Blue, and My Jam Purple. I'll incorporate light washes of Bee Sting Yellow and Marigold Orange, making sure not to blend into their complementary colors. Otherwise, I might end up with areas of brown or gray, but it's okay if I do. I'll just add a little bit of black over it. There are some areas where I touch the painted black ink pad to my acetate blending sheet to darken Peacock Blue and My Jam Purple. But for the most part, I'm just intensifying the colors by adding more to increase the opacity. Once I'm happy with the overall blend, I'll add painted black only to the edges for a vignette. This will help enforce the space scene, but really the magic happens once you add the stars. I like to use my Ink on 3 water brush to dilute a very small drop of Dr. P.H. Martin's pen white and sparingly add white dots. You'll see that Atelier ink is water reactive, so I get these wonderful light halos scattered around my scene as well. I'll carefully move that to the side to dry and work on the next part of this card. Now I have my Mini Misty and Heffy Doodle stamp and die set out. I'll use Ink on 3 Blackout detail ink to stamp these images onto some Copic-friendly white cardstock. I'm going to make two space scene cards, so I'll stamp these images twice by rotating the ink panel in my Misty and stamping it again. To clean off these photopolymer stamps, I'll wipe off the excess Blackout ink with my Ink on 3 microfiber cloth. Lightly dab a bit of my ink off pad directly onto the stamp surface, and wipe off the stamp again with my microfiber cloth. Not only are my Heffy Doodle stamps clean, but now they're perfectly conditioned for the next time I use them. Now I'll break out my Copic markers and start coloring this scene. I'm not showing you the entire process because my head got in the way, but I'm simply plucking colors here and there to get interesting blends and colors on the planets. I try to keep them as true as the gas giants themselves, but the real star of the scene is the nebula, so I'm trying not to introduce too many new colors. Of course, I had to color one of the astronauts as myself, so I gave him dark hair and a medium complexion. As for the other astronauts, I gave him red hair and some freckles that I added with a brown colored pencil. I added some white highlights with a gel pen to give this scene a more toy-like appearance. Once I finished all the coloring, I die cut all the images with the coordinating spaced out dies from Heffy Doodle. When I make dark scenes like this nebula, I like to take away the white margin around my die cuts by coloring them in with a black alcohol marker. In my opinion, these give a more cohesive look rather than these white stickers placed on black paper. Luckily, these images are simple to trace around, so once I finish that, I set them aside to work on the nebula background again. I'm aligning this circle die to the center of my now dry nebula background. This one is 3.5 inches in diameter. Now I have two pieces from this one background. After all, the background took me a while to make. I might as well distribute the fun between two cards. So first up is the circle piece. I die cut these smaller stitch stars and other star bits from the Sun, Moon, and Stars standalone die set using silver mirror cardstock. Then I made a quick star background with black cardstock and the same Ink on 3 water brush from earlier. I'll make my sentiment banner using chrome embossing powder and juicy embossing ink pad, both from Ink on 3 onto some black cardstock. Then I'll simply assemble my card, raising some images with craft foam, and that finishes this first card for a spotlight nebula scene. So up next is the circle frame, but before I do anything with this, I'll make a full shaker card front. I've been on a shaker card spree lately, and I have a tutorial on how to make a full shaker card front on my channel, so make sure you check that out next. Once the glue is tacky on the back of the circle frame nebula, I'll adhere it directly on top of the acetate. I'll make another sentiment banner, this time with Gold Rush embossing powder on black cardstock. Then I'll assemble all the other 5 colored die cuts and the sentiment banner around the circle frame, again raising some images with craft foam. The inspiration from the scene actually comes from the sentiment. I was thinking of flying at light speed through hyperspace and the Trail of Stars, which are the sequins falling in the shaker window. But anyway, these are the 2 cards I made from one ink-blended nebula background. Thank you so much for tuning in to this fun collaboration video. I already love many of the Ink on 3 mediums, and sharing the excitement with Heffy Doodle products made for 2 cards I'm proud to share. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and I'm so glad you stopped by. All the materials I used on today's card are in the description box below. While you're there, make sure you like this video, share it with your far out friends, and subscribe to join my orbit. Okay, that's enough space puns. I'll talk to you all very soon, and have the best day.